Gamarra says that he collected evidence that indicates that both sides corrupted the courts, but each side insists that the evidence was either unreliable or forged. Ronald Gamarra says he was taken off the case by the Peruvian Attorney General before he was able to complete his investigation.
Ese era un tema que a nadie le convenía investigar. Pasarán los años y alguna vez se investigará y se llegará a la verdad y se sabrá que en efecto sí se cometieron delitos. Y estoy seguro que sí se pagaron sobornos.
Newmont says they did not break the law, and it's never been proven that Newmont, the French, or the Peruvian judge were involved in any illegal activity. The United States government did investigate allegations that Newmont paid bribes under the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, but that investigation ended late last year after the Peruvian government failed to fully cooperate and the statute of limitations ran out. Today, Newmont's Yanacocha mine is the most profitable gold mine in the history of Peru. But they are not the first foreigners to seek gold here. 500 years ago, it was the Spanish who came to Cajamarca. They conquered this land and captured the leader of the Inca Empire, Atahualpa. Near the central plaza, there is a museum, a reconstruction of the room where the conquistadors held Atahualpa for ransom. To win his freedom, Atahualpa promised his captors to fill the room with gold, as high as he could reach. But the Spanish betrayed him. They kept the gold and killed him anyway.
Atahualpa fills the room with gold. The Spanish kill him and take the gold. And then today, the foreigners are back.
It's not that they have returned and taken it. I think that's what they've been doing all along, with gold, with silver, with all kinds of metals and minerals. No?
Mirko Lauer says that's one reason why the locals are still so distrustful of foreigners.
And this is a basic historical lesson of these times, no? Unhappy peoples surrounding or watching very happy transnational corporations moving earth and digging gold.
Over the last decade, the mine has expanded, spreading across the mountaintops, now driven by the rising price of gold, which is approaching $500 an ounce.
To get, let's say, an ounce of gold, how much of this earth do you have to move?
An ounce of gold will be roughly, about 30 tons.
In Yanacocha, they dig up 500,000 tons of earth each day, literally moving mountains. There are no mine shafts here. It's an open pit mine. They are mining what's called invisible gold because it's microscopic.
We carry the ore, the rock that has gold in it, place it on the leach pads, and then we'll sprinkle a weak cyanide solution over the leach pads.
And that's the word that sort of stops me, cyanide.
Mm-hmm. Cyanide is an industrial chemical that we use. And if you look at the mining industry, our use of this industrial chemical is state-of-the-art.
Yanacocha is the world's largest cyanide heap leach mine. Management insists that cyanide here is contained on site in these lined ponds. But the local campesinos say they don't trust the mine to protect the environment. We went to see the family of Miguel Garcia, a dairy farmer.
Allá, sin temor a equivocarme, lo menos hay 100,000 metros cuadrados, algo más, de pato, y donde hay concentrado de cianuro y otras químicas.
Mining on this scale uses massive amounts of water, and the campesinos worry that their most precious natural resource is being depleted.
Los están destruyendo nuestra agua, nuestros cerros, nuestra flora, fauna, etc.
Trust between the campesinos and the mine really broke down here on these perilous mountain roads. In June of 2000, a truck contracted to carry mercury from the mine accidentally spilled 330 pounds of its toxic cargo over a 25-mile stretch of road, most of it in and around this tiny village of Churopampa. The mercury, which is a toxic byproduct of gold mining, was picked up by the villagers. Many thought the metal had gold in it and took it home.
Era bonito. Y lo cogimos, lo trajimos a mi casa. Porque nos decían, no nos dijeron que era mercurio, nos dijeron a los 8 días empezó a salirme granitos de la piel. Los mareos, vómito, fiebre, dolor de cabeza.
Many of the villagers ended up in hospitals. More than 1,000 people are now suing in a U.S. federal court, some alleging that they still suffer serious health problems. Afterwards, the villagers took to the streets demanding health care and reparations. I asked Rocky Benavides, Newmont's Peruvian partner, about the spill.
Nobody was dead. Nobody was dead. Mercury never got to the waters, and certainly there have been some complaints. We had an insurance policy for the whole population for 5 years. This will continue for another 5 years, so it was not all that bad.
But the mercury spill sparked protests that grew into violent clashes with police, becoming a public relations nightmare for Newmont. At company headquarters in Denver, the mercury spill was a wake-up call for Larry Kurlander. He wrote a letter to company management stating that the spill has cost us our hard-earned reputation, a reputation that will be stained for many years to come.
You recommended bonuses be cut or forfeited by the officers responsible, including you. That couldn't have been very popular.
It was not.
Was it done?
I would say it was not done. It was done in such a minimal way, in my opinion, as to have no impact. We had to send a message. And I don't think we did that adequately.
After the mercury spill, Newmont decided to investigate what was going on at the mine, and they sent Larry Kurlander back to Peru to conduct an environmental audit.
There were water issues, there were air issues, there were road issues, there were health issues, all arising out of the mining operation.
We obtained a copy of the audit that Kurlander and his team produced, an audit which found 20 high-priority problems at the mine. Many of the findings confirmed the complaints of the villagers, that their water was contaminated and fish were disappearing. The audit also found that waste rock at the mine had turned acidic and was generating acid runoff. In fact, the findings were so serious that Kurlander, in a memo, warned that senior executives could be subject to criminal prosecution and imprisonment.
The company says it operates overseas at the same standards that it would have to meet here in the United States. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Were they doing that in Peru?
No.
Were these minor violations?
No.
What standard were they using?
You have to ask them that question. But it was not a U.S. standard, and it was not a Peruvian standard.
We wanted to discuss the audit with Newmont CEO Wayne Murdy, but he declined our request for an interview. For Kurlander, the audit and the company's response to it was a personal turning point.
You had a transformation, if you will, during this period, in terms of your perspective.
I think that's a fair statement.
In what way? Maybe you could describe that.
Well, you know, we all understand that the extractive industries, particularly mining, disturb the earth. And when we're out there preaching that, you know, we're guardians of the environment, and you suddenly discover that we're not, that it's like someone hits you in the stomach real hard.
Less than a year after the audit, Larry Kurlander decided to retire. 2 years later, Newmont's CEO wrote Kurlander this letter, in which he belatedly praised Kurlander for sensitizing the company to some of its shortcomings, which prompted them to make changes at the Yanacocha mine. The CEO, Wayne Murdy, wrote that since Kurlander's audit, the company has spent more than $100 million on environmental improvements. And Newmont says that today they comply with all national and international environmental standards. At Yanacocha, they have set up a water monitoring lab and constructed dams to control runoff and to protect the fish population. They've implemented new procedures for transporting mercury and are building a $40 million road so they can bypass the local villages. But despite the company's efforts, many in Cajamarca are still suspicious.
Los animales se enferman y ya no producen harta leche, los sembrados ya no producen bastante.
So have you complained to the mine?
Las comunidades siempre presentamos así propuestas que nos apoyen con algo, pero a veces hacen casos omisos, o sea, no.
Father Marco Arana is a Catholic priest and a leader of the opposition to the mine.
Cajamarca confiaba mucho en Yanacocha cuando ellos llegaron hace 11 años. Yanacocha durante estos 11 años ha hecho todo lo necesario para destruir esa confianza. Corrupción de autoridades, el problema del agua, el problema de la tierra con los campesinos, enfrentamientos a veces violentos con la población. Yanacocha necesita volver a construir la confianza.
Larry Kurlander believes that Newmont has made significant improvements, but needs to do a lot more to win back the trust of the people.
There is a social license that, in my opinion, is far more important than the government license, because the social license is granted by the people of the community, and unlike the government license, it's renewable every day. And without building a trust with the people who live there and work there, and who've lived there for centuries, you're going to have trouble, and indeed they have.
I hate the term social license. I do not understand what social license means. We essentially apply social responsibility, caring for people, but a social license, I expect a license from the authorities, from the Ministry of Mines. I expect a license from the regional government, but I don't expect a license from the whole community.
We do a tremendous amount of work directly with the communities.
Brant Hinsey, the mine manager, says he recognizes the importance of working with and helping the community. Before we left, he took us on a tour of projects funded by the mine and to a lunch hosted by a community leader who supports the company. Newmont provides 2,200 full-time jobs in the region, allowing many to buy a home and a car for the first time. The hosts presented Hinza with a gift, a statue of Atahualpa, the Inca emperor, whose gold was stolen by the Spanish. From today on, if you do everything right, you think the community will support you?
I would hope that we can continue to build and develop on the trust within the communities so that as a mining company, we continue to have opportunities here to continue to expand and be a neighbor here for a very long time.
In their latest report to investors, Newmont revealed that its production of gold at Yanacocha is expected to dramatically decline, in part because its expansion plans are now in jeopardy. The company wanted to start digging at this mountain called Cerro Quilich, which they believe contains more than $1 billion worth of gold. But for the campesinos, Quilich is a sacred mountain and a source of precious water.
El Quilich para Yanacocha es una montaña de oro, y para la población el Quilich es una montaña de agua. Y Yanacocha no escuchó a la población.
Last fall, thousands of Peruvians filled the town square of Cajamarca. It was the largest protest ever against the Yanacocha mine. Blocking roads, the protesters succeeded in shutting down mine operations and forced the company to stop its expansion plans.
We have no plans to go in and enter Cerro Quilich again. Now, will it ever be mined? I don't know. I can't answer that.
These times, no? Unhappy peoples surrounding or watching very happy transnational corporations moving earth and digging gold.
Over the last decade, the mine has expanded, spreading across the mountaintops, now driven by the rising price of gold, which is approaching $500 an ounce.
To get, let's say, an ounce of gold, how much of this earth do you have to move?
Gold mine in the history of Peru. But they are not the first foreigners to seek gold here. 500 years ago, it was the Spanish who came to Cajamarca. They conquered this land and captured the leader of the Inca Empire, Atahualpa. Near the central plaza, there is a museum, a reconstruction of the room where the conquistadors held Atahualpa for ransom. To win his freedom, Atahualpa promised his captors to fill the room with gold, as high as he could reach. But the Spanish betrayed him. They kept the gold and killed him anyway.
Atahualpa fills the room with gold. The Spanish kill him and take the gold. And then today, the foreigners are back.
It's not that they have returned and taken it. I think that's what they've been doing all along, with gold, with silver, with all kinds of metals and minerals. No?
Mirko Lauer says that's one reason why the locals are still so distrustful of foreigners.
And this is a basic historical lesson of.
Gamarra says that he collected evidence that indicates that both sides corrupted the courts, but each side insists that the evidence was either unreliable or forged. Ronald Gamarra says he was taken off the case by the Peruvian Attorney General before he was able to complete his investigation.
Ese era un tema que a nadie le convenía investigar. Pasarán los años y alguna vez se investigará y se llegará a la verdad y se sabrá que en efecto sí se cometieron delitos. Y estoy seguro que sí se pagaron sobornos.
Newmont says they did not break the law, and it's never been proven that Newmont, the French, or the Peruvian judge were involved in any illegal activity. The United States government did investigate allegations that Newmont paid bribes under the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, but that investigation ended late last year after the Peruvian government failed to fully cooperate and the statute of limitations ran out. Today, Newmont's Yanacocha mine is the most profitable